You were asked to join President Obama's team at the White House. What kind of key learnings did you take away from all of those experiences?
Well, the first thing I would say is it took me a while to figure out what I learned.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Leadership Chronicles podcast. I am Sarah Alter, one of your co-hosts, and I'm joined by the incredible Sherri Sklar, my co-host.
Hello
Welcome,
there, Sarah.
Sherri. And then, most importantly, on our third official podcast, we are honored to be joined by just the amazing Desirée Rogers. Desiree, thank you so much for
Well,
joining
thank
us.
you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
I know, us too. And we are, again, just so honored because we appreciate just how crazy busy you are, that you were able to, share this time with us. And as you will all hear, Desiree has just had a phenomenal personal and professional journey. And in the spirit of, why Sherri and I decided to host the Leadership Chronicles, we want to shine the spotlight today and really celebrate, Desirée Rogers and all of the success that she's had throughout her life and her career. But also my sense is she's going to share a lot of the things she's learned as well. I'm going to share just a quick bio, and I have to read it because it is so extensive that I could not memorize this all.
Stop it.
That's a great story.
So Desirée Rogers has been the CEO of Black Opal Beauty since 2019. She is the former chair of Choose Chicago. She was a chief executive officer of Johnson Publishing Company and the former special assistant and social secretary to President Obama, as well as several other leadership positions in various industries. She serves on the Stagwell and Inspired Entertainment public boards. She also serves on World Business Chicago, the Northwestern Hospital Board, as well as the American Cancer Society. Ms. Rogers graduated from the Academy of the Sacred Heart in New Orleans, and she earned a bachelor's degree in political science from Wellesley College, and as we all know, an MBA from Harvard Business School. So welcome, Desiree.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Welcome.
All right. So we learned that it was probably about a year ago, May, that you spoke to the current HBS class. And how did that feel being at the front of the classroom instead of, sitting in one of the classroom seats?
Well, I always sat in the middle, so I was neither in front nor back when I was there. And so, it was different for sure. I hadn't been back on campus for a little bit. But I would have to say that I was so pleasantly surprised by all the changes that have occurred since I was there. And those changes were very evident. This was last May. And as you can imagine, there was high tension around protests and that kind of thing. And speaking to the dean, he said, nope, we haven't had any protest. We are open to all conversation, all opinions. And so we've been able to speak without protest. And the diversity of the student body, the individuals that I met, was certainly well beyond what I had when I was there.
Yeah.
And just the diversity of not only of nationalities and of, races and religions and all of that, but the diversity of interest and the saluting of all of the interests. You didn't have to be a management consultant or an investment banker to get the largest amount of praise and claps from your classmates. You could be doing something in a non-for-profit or something in venture capital or something you wanted to change the world and make a discovery. Everyone seemed to be doing a variety of things that were equally celebrated across the class. And that's what was really exciting to me.
Yeah. No, and I would say I was just sharing earlier, I'm headed back for my 30th reunion this weekend.
Oh, I'll see you there. I'll be there as well.
Oh, hey, we'll look for you on campus.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to attend HBS?
I mean, this goes back quite some time. As a young girl, I always wanted to go to the East for education. I'm from New Orleans. And I don't know how I had this idea, and I'm not certain it's a wrong idea, but it's the idea I had is that educational excellence was in the Northeast and in particular Harvard. And that's where I was going to go. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I got lucky and I got in and everything, but I was a kid. I didn't know. I
I
mean,
know.
it was aspirational, as they would say these days. It
I'm
was on my board that was inspired, my inspiration board.
Well, I'm going to say it was not luck, but I appreciate your humility. Okay, so when you look at like those key takeaways, like I always talk about, I learned how to digest a fire hose of data and synthesize the top three takeaways. I learned how to think on my feet. What were some of the key learnings that you had?
Well, entering in, I was very concerned that I had two things. I had really severe migraines that would incapacitate me for several days. And so I was determined to not have those migraines during those 2 years. So that was one thing that was on my mind. And the second thing that was on my mind was that I also I have dyslexia. And so those two things were on my mind as my people would say they're special powers. To me, it was like, oh my gosh, you have to navigate through this in a situation that is going to be intense. And so those were two things that were on my mind. But I think, entering in, I think that I learned to do what I could. Okay. That yes, I'm going to be the one that puts the most stress on myself forever in my life, but I'm going to be able, there's always a way to manage. You may not be at the top, but you're going to be able to manage and learn just like everyone else in the class. And so you can't stress yourself out to the point that you can't perform. And so moderation was one thing that I think I learned over time, and also some humility in that, you're going to do okay, but you may not be at the top every day. And if
Hmm.
that's okay, pay attention to what you can learn from others and also accept what you're never going to get.
Wow.
Some of the statistics work that some of my colleagues were doing when I'm struggling through, one regression and they're doing 20, I can sit there and just be absorbed by the fact that I'll never be able to get 20. I barely understand the first one, or I can do the best I can to understand the first one and salute the people in my section that are doing 20 different ones. That we
Yeah.
all have talent. And so everyone is different. And so this whole idea of respecting the talent of each of the individuals in
Hmm.
the room, in particular, respecting your talent was a big lesson to me because everything doesn't have to be a competition. We don't all have to be the same. And in fact, it's great that we bring different opinions, different knowledge, to the table. And that's part of, what people today would call their superpowers. It's like, what do you bring to the table? What makes you you?
Yeah.
And really trying to respect that over time. Now, this is now reflection back.
Yeah.
At that time, believe me, I was like, how come I don't know the 20 regressions? What's wrong with me? I got to get with the program here, And so, but I think that's one thing I carried away is that, you know, we're
Yeah.
never going to be the best at everything as a single person. It's not going to happen, especially at that level.
It speaks of a certain level of grit and character to have to go through some challenges. I can't even imagine thinking through how do you get through a migraine, dyslexia, of all those things that could be
Yeah.
a challenge, but you found a way to power through and emerge and be counted as very present and very powerful. And then, when I look back at, and studying your career and you and the amazing things that you have done so far, when I look at the themes throughout your life and fostering community growth and establishing platforms for discussing important social issues and transforming business, transforming lives, these are themes that are popping out at me when I look at all the cool things that you have done. And I'm wondering, going back to your childhood, because I heard you grew up in the South, by the way, New Orleans. I love that. Went to school in New Orleans myself. And you shared at one point with us that you had some very strong female leaders in your family or your community. Tell us a little bit about your early childhood, your early life, and how did that shape you into who you are today? Did any of that, is that how it all started? This charisma, this grit, this character. Tell us about some of the things you got out of that.
Listen, I think we all are born with something, right? It's just a matter of leaning into that and understanding what that something is over time. So early on, I really had an amazing opportunity to live in a household where, first and foremost, education was at the center. And that doesn't mean that everyone was educated or that everyone was a PhD, because they certainly were not. And my grandparents, who I was very close to and spent a lot of time with growing up, only had an eighth grade education. And so to see them create a business, with their just sheer, not formal training, was really remarkable as I think back on that today, and how they really were able to get through that. I mean, they had basic, it's not even finance, math skills, I would say, and basic just determination to make a difference in their neighborhood. So I was able to witness my grandmother, my mother, and my grandfather open these daycare centers in New Orleans, because they thought, in the 70s, that women were working outside of the home and they needed a place that was reputable, that they could leave, and safe for their children. And so that was the business that they created, probably in the late 60s, really, that they created and were able to grow and really employ a big chunk of our family over time, whether it's, the cooking in the kitchen, the driving the children home. It was a full service type of operation. It was very modern in that way. You could, have your child, come early or come a little later. It was almost like you select, I want
Yeah.
these services for my child. I want them to have a snack. I want them to have this, but it was a la carte. You would have to pay extra for these things. And so early on, I spent a lot of time in that business because my mother was working there. And so my brother and I wound up volunteering there, so to speak, gathering up kids, playing with them in the playground, all of those kinds of, because we were kids ourselves. So we saw firsthand how hard they worked, and also the success of that, but also the community absorption, so to speak, of the
Mhm.
work that they were doing. So thousands of young people of a certain age in New Orleans went to those centers.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's early on a view of how your family, your mom, your grandmom, your grandfather made a big impact on the community. That's got
Right.
to have impressed you as a young child,
Right.
young
Right.
Desiree.
Right. And they kept pushing me. So I would go with my grandfather. He would drop off the kids and he would say, "Okay, I'm listening to you. Which way do I turn?" So I had to memorize the streets and know, like, you're going to take a left here or a right here, or street is, he'd give me the list. This is the kids that we're going to drop off. You tell me
Mhm.
which way to go. So there was a constant, even though he only had an eighth grade education, he said, I'm going to challenge her in that 2 hours that we're dropping off to see if she's paying attention and which way should I go. He also did that with a lot of math, that he had his figures correct.
And, really giving you a sense of empowerment. Is empowering
That's
you to
right.
help him. That's amazing.
I
What a
mean, you
great
had to
skill
do the
to have.
figures with him.
Yeah.
He was constantly teaching in his own way.
And it sounds like it was a productive and happy family business as opposed to, a lot of the other
Yeah,
examples we
very
hear
small, but
about.
everyone had their part. I mean,
Yeah.
I think with some of
Yeah.
these things, as we know in life, everyone wants their seat at the table, and they want the opportunity to flourish in whatever it is that they're bringing forward. And so I think that they were smart in that they gave everyone an opportunity to have their
Mhm.
space and to flourish in their piece of the business that they were controlling.
Love that. Well, I can see how that can influence you as a senior leader, you know, a lot of your leadership roles. So that's cool.
Yeah. And it, like, for me, it's like, as I was digesting your bio earlier, I just kept thinking servant leader, right? Like love how your family shaped how you were not only serving, you know, the families, but the community, because several of your relatives had political roles as well. You shared, though, that you felt like that first big career break was when you were appointed to the director role for the Illinois State Lottery. What do you feel like that paved the way for, that role and beyond?
I think it paved the way for everything in many respects because, yes, it is in state government, but it was a $2 billion business that was entrusted to a 30-year-old. And so it allowed me to really think about, what did I know? What didn't I know? And it really helped me to refine this whole idea of what I was at that time called the wise ones, and maybe the ones that were hoping to be wise, and the importance of the combination of people that have done the work for many multiples of years, but also making certain that you pave the way for innovation and you create an environment where those groups can come together is really an opportunity to do your best work. And that was my first opportunity where I really got to try that out. That theme of let's listen to everyone that's maybe been here 20 years at the state lottery, but let's bring in some new people that know nothing about the state lottery, and let's see what we come up with. And let's see if, in fact, we can use that foundational work and then layer on that some innovative work to take the business to the next level.
Yeah. And then your next big chapter was AT&T.
I did AT&T, then the lottery.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay,
yes. Then I did the utility you're probably thinking about. I went into the utility business after the lottery. I like to say that I've been focused on those things that we all have to think about, but we might not want to think about. Like, the lottery is one thing, but utilities, telecom, and then I ultimately also had a stint in insurance. So it's all those things we need, but would be considered a little bit boring, maybe with the exception of the lottery. So everyday life.
And I think it was the utility company that you'd shared that it wasn't an easy journey because you had to earn respect and trust, and easier said than done. Tell us a little bit about that.
I feel like in every position that I've been in, for the most part, I've had that struggle. And it's not to say that struggle is any different than anyone else that maybe is a first in some of these jobs. In all of those jobs, including even some of my AT&T roles, I was the youngest, the first, the only woman, the only minority, woman to take on these roles. And so, yes, I got used to that, but with that brings a certain amount of baggage and a certain amount of, people have to get used to you. I mean, people tend to gravitate towards people that look like them.
Yeah.
And feel most comfortable with them because it's my sister or my aunt or my brother, or, they look just like me. And so I know them. I feel like I know them, even though it's a trick, right? Because you don't really know them, but you think you know them, because maybe they're closer to a mirror image of yourself. And so it becomes an education of, yes, I do celebrate this. And yes, I think you celebrate this, no, I am a Catholic, or whatever it is. And so you become the educator as you get to know people. And I think the more data points that people have about an individual, they can make up their mind whether or not they like you or not. But we all know that work is work. You don't have to love everyone that you work with. That's not what we're talking about, but we do have tasks to be completed. And so I think it's one step at a time. I would say if we were interviewing 20 people that have worked with me or for me, some of them have positives and some of them, have negatives. But I think what they will all say is that we were fairly successful in what we did, and that they could be proud of the work that and the accomplishments that they had as part of the team. And so I think it's really about like kind of keeping focused, keeping your eye on the ball. Everything is not personal. I think one of the things that we often do, and I hate to say it, this might be my bias, but more women than men, I think, is we always think somehow it's like personal or it's something about us, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Many times it's not.
That's a relief. For a lot of people listening in here, that's a good thing to say.
It's just not. Or you can ask, is this personal? What are we talking about here? And just get it out of the way. Get it out of the way. And I think that so often we just need to get things out of the way. We're bogged down by things in our mind. Just ask the question. What's the worst thing that can happen? You get the answer, and it is about you, Desiree. Okay, then can we work through this?
Well,
I'm just saying, I think the mind is a very interesting instrument, and you are in charge of your mind, and you know your mind better than anyone else. And so you have to manage your mind to have it perform the way you want it to perform. I didn't say emotion, I said the mind.
yeah. Well, because 99% of the time it does have nothing to do with you, right? It's just like, they had a fight with someone or they woke up on the wrong side of the bed and, yeah.
Exactly right. Everyone's human, including
Yeah.
leaders and bosses. They're
Yeah.
all human. They all have to deal with all kinds of things like utilities and telecom and
Well,
insurance.
I love you had shared with us too, Desiree, and I loved this philosophy and I so agree with you. But you had always been committed to, I don't just want to work in headquarters. I want to work in a line job. I want to work in the thick and the heart and the soul of the operation. Tell us a little bit about that and how that served you well in your career.
I think we talked early on about my career as the coach to my grandfather in the car or helping with the children on the playground. That's really where it happens, right? I want to be in the room where it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of understanding a business overall is understanding where there's a connection with a customer. Where are the points that maybe you can make improvements on? You can't do that if you sit at a desk and you're just reading data all day. You do want to be informed by that data, but you want to take that data and then really talk to people that are actually doing the work. And if you are so lucky to be, running one of the line positions, you can make those changes. You can say, now we're going to do it this way, or we've decided that, that no longer works, so let's try this. And so you actually have the ability to impact the work and see that impact happening fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And then you can, if it wasn't quite right, you can tweak it. And so I think that, that's a big benefit to being in line positions. And also you're able to challenge yourself, right? Nope, that didn't work. Okay, let's try this. It doesn't take months. I'm fairly impatient. It doesn't take months and months to figure out if something is going to work or not. You can, you can adapt quickly, and you're also with people that are doing the work, so they pretty much know what they're doing. So that's another learning proposition, is that they can teach you really how to do something. And remember what I said earlier on. I'm smart enough to know my level of what I'm going to be able to understand. And I just kind of cut them off and say, I'm never going to understand how to run a gas line underground in the city of Chicago. So what I'm looking for is trends of, does this work this way? Or, how many hours does it take to do this? Or is there a better way to do this? Why are we drilling in the street and water was there yesterday? Should we go and meet with water and coordinate on where we're drilling? This is what I'm bringing to the table. I know I can't do that work. I mean, who are we fooling? It's like putting me in front of a piano and telling me to play Beethoven. I have limits.
Desiree, talk about impact. By now you had a daughter, you remarried, and the world was calling on you. And you were asked to join President Obama's team at the White House. I'm so excited to unpack that adventure.
Yeah.
Here you are. You are just fearless, Desiree. I mean, you're trying utilities, telecom, insurance, and now it's the White House. It's like taking on the world. you are clearly a leader that is making an impact. But I was just curious, and you had even said being at the White House is like the Super Bowl meeting the royal court. So I'm curious about why you said that. And also tell us about your challenges at the White House as a leader, and what kind of key learnings did you take away from all of those experiences?
Well, the first thing I would say is it took me a while to figure out what I learned. I mean, it was so much, everything was so quick and so fast and so intense. It's everyone's on stage. You're on stage like 24/7. And there are a series of characters, some of which the public knows, others of which the public doesn't know as well. But there's cameras constantly around. There are people filming 24/7. They're outside. The media is right there, at your job. You literally are checking into a job every day where people have guns and are checking to make certain that you're not bringing in anything, that could be dangerous. You literally have something under your desk that if there's a bomb threat or whatever, you're able to put this mask over your face. I went in as a person who really felt strongly about service. You can see that as part of the theme of my family. And so, it was an opportunity that I was never going to, say no to, because service is so important. And I think all of us have at some point, you need to serve in some capacity.
Agree.
And that it is a wonderful thing that everyone can do, including children. Everyone has the capacity to serve. And so I went there, wanting to serve. I had worked in corporate for most of my adult life. And so in corporations, there are hierarchies, whether you like them or not, but they're like the HR department or whatever. If you have something to complain about, you can go to HR. There was no HR here. People are moving very quickly and have literally the world on their shoulders. And so it's tense. It is tense. It is, emotional. It is political. There are people that literally are trying to go after the people that have the world on their shoulders and take them down. It's super competitive, even within the walls, because people are like vying for whatever I didn't have that part. I was like, I'm here to do this, and I want it to be a meritocracy where we just like focus on she did this really well. That, that's not really what the environment was like. There's a lot of, politics. There's a lot of politics in big companies too. It's just
Yeah.
not on TV every day. And you don't have the world on your shoulders necessarily. That changes, like this, I mean, we had bird flu, we had so many things, we had the young kids that were killed. We had, the military person that, threw a bomb. I mean, it's just you're like, phew, I just got done with that. And then it'd be some other horrible thing, you're like, oh my God.
Talk about challenge. And here you are, you took on so many different industries and you became, the leader of all those industries. And here you are at the White House and you took that on and you had a whole vision of creating the People's House, which by the way, I thought was
Stolen
brilliant.
from Andrew Jackson. So Andrew Jackson was the first one to have it be the People's House, and I think he had farm animals on the lawn and all this stuff, and like tore up the house and all of this thing. But we thought that, wow, wouldn't it be great to take everything that the president and first lady spoke about during the election and try to bring that to life within every event that we did. And so being a business person, we divided things into different quadrants, I'm gonna say, and we were able to be much, I won't judge, but efficient, and spend a lot of our time thinking about the strategy, who would be there, what it would represent, and how we would make it super duper special. Okay. And so we divided the historical events from events that we were creating, because there are a series of historical events, and just how do we turn those events on their heads to make them better? How do we take everything that's been done in the past and not just copy it, but think about what the Obamas represented, So that's one layer. And then think about how does that translate into America? And then how do we take something that existed, the framework of what existed, and change it to some extent? I mean, Easter egg roll is a prime example. I mean, that's existed for so many years. And before getting to watch, I didn't even know what the Easter egg roll was. I'm like, how do you roll an egg? What is this exactly? I mean, anyway, I learned very quickly, but I also learned that the majority of the people that attended were from the immediate DMV. And I thought, well, the Obamas would like everyone to have an opportunity to be invited to the Easter egg roll. And so we literally said, why do people have to stay there for 8 hours? Why can't they have 2 hour increments where everyone comes in for 2 hours? We empty it out and we bring another group in. So it allowed us to invite maybe 6 times as many people. So more people had access to the event. And then we also did a lottery and picked people from all across the nation to be able to come to the Easter egg roll. So that's one example of thinking a little bit more innovative. Remember the gray hairs, the old wise ones, which I'm now
Yeah.
one, and innovation.
Me
How
too.
do we put those together to create something that is reflective of the Obamas and what they were trying to do?
And this is why, being, you're a natural business leader, but bringing those business leadership skills to the White House,
Yeah.
the strategic planning involved that you're talking about, you actually took the time and the intention to think that through and really
That was our big
change. That's
change.
cool.
That was our big change in terms of what we did and how we ran the social office when I was there.
And from what I read, you executed over 250 of these innovative
350.
350. Oh, okay, I didn't have the right number. That's crazy. That's amazing.
But
So
you know,
that's
we
a
got a
lot of
program.
operation.
We got a program. So we had, spring, these are all the linens for that. We weren't doing that part of the job. These are the flowers for that. So we had like literally a book. Okay, pick this one so we could work on the strategy behind the event.
Ah, very efficient, very
So,
efficient.
so can I ask you one quick question? Forgive me for interrupting. Did you ever have to interact or engage with Bo Obama, the dog?
Of course, he came to visit us all the time. He liked our office. He hung out in our office many times while his mom was taking meetings.
We had a Portuguese water dog, and she was a cousin of Bo's.
Oh
It was
wow. Did they
crazy.
ever meet? Did they ever
No,
have
sadly,
doggy treats together?
no, they did not. They did
Oh,
not.
Bo was a nice dog.
Yeah.
Super nice.
That's
That's what I
great.
heard.
But so I just, this is so exciting. I mean, the theme in your lives, you have so many great themes, but one I think that's so cool is you're a courageous leader because you jump into industries you've never been in before. And then you make an impact. And in fact, I think I wrote down something. You said, there's a quote you said, I don't know whether it was at the HBS Alumni Achievement Awards. I read this, that you said, if you feel good about yourself, there's nothing you can't do. How inspirational is that? But I am just curious about, here you are, you're at the White House, you're at any of these positions where you didn't know the job before, but you end up being the leader of it. What's the lesson for other women leaders, particularly women leaders, that you can share with us? How did you do that? And what you think the secrets are? What's the criteria that you use that could help you be successful wherever you go?
I think one of the first things that we as women do is we doubt. We doubt ourselves. So you have to put that under your pillow. Okay? So it's always going to be there, but let's put it under the pillow so that it doesn't cloud our behavior and our willingness to be vulnerable, to be open, to ask the questions, to make mistakes, to forgive them quickly. Because if you're the lead, you can't wallow in your mistake very long. You're gonna be like, that didn't work. What did I learn? It was my mistake. Take ownership. And how do we improve on that? And know what you know. I mean, that's a big one. It's like know what you know what you don't know, and go after it. And also, application of what you do know to new situations is really what it's all about, right? I mean, I have to apply what I learned at the previous post in this new post, look for ways that I can be successful early on, particularly if you're coming to a new environment. You need some successes. You need, if that team is not your team, you need to show them that you know what you're doing, at least to some degree, right? You can't blow it for the first month over and over again, but you also can, involve them in the process and not take so long to make decisions. Sometimes we study, we study, we study. What are we studying? you know, Study at home. So I love at the beginning of a job, it's almost 24/7, and I'm doing so much work behind the scenes, but you're never going to see that because I'm just trying to catch up. I'm just trying to get the basics. And so, just like you said that quote, I'll come back and I said, remember when you said X, Y, and Z? What did you mean by that? And they'll be shocked. How does she know that? You
Yeah.
gotta do your homework. You have, and people say that and they don't do their homework.
Well, I got to be honest. I was the person at HBS where I was always doing the homework. I was always like up till 2, 3 in the morning, whatever. And then I had a person sitting right next to me who was so brilliant, he didn't have to do anything. He just
Oh,
showed up, and he actually one day when the professor called on him to open, he didn't have any notes, didn't prepare. He said, "Sherri, can I have your notes?" I passed him my notes, and he killed it.
see?
But I would never have been able to kill it if I did not prepare. And that's just the way I am. It sounds like you were the same way.
Well, listen, there's someone passed me their notes and when I didn't have notes. So I
Yay.
love that story. I
Yeah.
mean, people were good that way, right?
Yeah.
We were
I
good that
know.
way. And luckily, when I was called, it was for something like McDonald's. So, it
Yeah.
wasn't that
You are
hard.
it.
It
Yeah.
wasn't like something I never heard of. But I think that, just everyone's different. It's okay. It's just, you don't have to judge it. You
So
don't
with
have to judge that. You find your way, and you just find, you have to find your way. But I get bored very easily. I like to be a little scared. My mother would often she'd say, "Are you sure you know what you're doing? Are you not over your skis?" I'm like, "Maybe a little, but I'll figure it. I'll
you
get it.
live
I'll get
dangerously,
it."
you can do it. So tell us about the listen, Desiree, how did you have the vision, the sense of purpose and mission that drove you or attracted you to acquire the business and run Black Opal? Tell us about that journey. How'd
So
you
when
get
I
into
left,
that? I mean, that
when
takes a whole nother level.
when I left the White House, I made a promise to myself that I was going to be involved in business in my community. Not until that time had I really thought, like, I want to be involved in a business that's in my community. And a lot of it is psychological, some of the things we've talked about. Am I really prepared to run a business in my community? What if I mess up? I've disappointed not only myself, but my community. The stakes are high, the risks are high. I want to be as close to perfect as I can be, and I want my community to be proud of the work that I'm doing. I don't want to embarrass them in any way. All of these things, when I was coming out of the White House, I was like, oh my gosh, I really have to be certain that that I can do it, that I think I can do it. And so I made a decision that, I'm constantly learning, but I thought I knew enough that I could do it. And I went to work for Johnson Publishing. Great opportunity. I started as a consultant and then I actually ran their businesses. A lot of learning there. So many years of history, so many amazing things that were done by the founders. And I'm coming in at a difficult time when print is
Mm.
really under fire and we're late to the digital game. We're strapped for capital. And what are we going to do? Because so many people are counting on us to make certain that these assets remain viable in the next generations to come. And so we now know, I mean, this is a struggle, but we now know that Smithsonian has the 5 million photographs of the archive, that ebony is digital today. We know these things, but when you're in that battle, I'm telling you, very, very difficult, very, very difficult to kind of like pave your way. And so I knew that, one of the things one of the companies I was running was Fashion Fair. And I saw the impact that, a simple lipstick, a simple moisturizer had on women, and how they would pour their hearts and souls out and talk about this and concerns about that at the counter. And so I thought, wow, I am a fairly novice cosmetics wearer. Um, I know more now, but I thought, wow, if I could ever be in that beauty space, that would be an amazing entry point into a business that benefited people that look like me, and also would allow me to have conversations about the importance of believing in yourself, the importance about you can do it, you really can, there are opportunities for you. I know it's hard, just be like part of that conversation, that it was going to be a good thing overall. I was going to feel good about the work, and I would hopefully be in a position to have a larger impact. I mean, African American women's far over index in cosmetics expenditure than any other ethnic group, and there are lots of historical reasons because of that speak to that. And so, rightly so, it would be amazing if there was a cosmetics business of scale that was in the hands of African Americans. And also, we know that, if the investment is those people that run it are going to invest back in their communities.
This goes along with the theme that I keep seeing through, woven throughout your career of, business making an impact and making an impact on people's lives and on the community. It's all like coming together. And I thought that was incredible how you just keep transitioning. We have lots to learn from Desirée Rogers. The other thing, Desiree, that I noticed, and you and I both share another thing in common besides New Orleans, we both were breast cancer survivors. And unfortunately, we experienced that. But on the other hand, it has brought you to the point where you're on the board of the American Cancer Society now, which I think is amazing. So thank you. I thank you so much, because that's an incredible organization. And I just thought I would ask you about, how did your greatest strength of building communities and making things better and having an impact, how are you bringing that together at the American Cancer Society? Like, how is that helping the fight against cancer? And, I'm so happy you're a leader over there as well on the board. So thank you. But
Well,
help
I'm
us
a new
understand.
board member, and certainly there's a tremendous amount of talent among my colleagues that have been there and served much longer than I have. We're in the middle of a CEO search, as you know.
Yep.
And so, one of the things I want to make certain is that we have someone that is going to think broader, is going to, think, how do we involve all aspects in the community, in this fight? How do we get people to sign up for research?
Yeah.
How do we get the data that we need in order to fight a disease that is now striking people much younger? And
Yes.
also, we're living longer, but many more people are getting cancer than ever before. We're living, but we're still getting it. And so, how do we reduce as much of that suffering as possible? And how do we, it's not just, I mean, research is so important. I understand all of that. Understanding the medicine is so important. But there are other pieces to this too: the fundraising piece, the volunteer piece, the legislative piece, the making certain that that team is unified in their approach to fighting the disease, partnerships. You know, there are many other groups that are also in this space. How do we partner together instead of maybe doing the same things? Is there a way to be a little bit more efficient in our battle? We're trying to fight cancer, so it's okay if we have another partner. In fact, it's great to have another partner. And we're building these facilities called Hope Homes, and so if you're not able to travel so far to get your treatment, you can stay
Yeah.
here to finish out your treatment with another family that becomes your family in this, journey, I would call it. And so we want to build more of those. And so there's a lot of great things that are happening, and there are a lot of kind of scary things that are happening at the same time. So how do you keep your wits about you and continue to progress in a positive way and have, all of the voices heard, but really keep our eye on the ball, right? Keep our eye on the ball and really be able to pinpoint and say, yep, we were able to get this done and able to get that done. And so I'm just, like I said, I'm new. I'm excited that we're in this search because that gives us an opportunity to, at the top, make a change. And, that hopefully will lead to an even better organization than what we have today. That's what I'm hopeful about. Looking forward to working with the entire team once we get this administrative piece done, right?
Well, I love how your background will help shape that, bringing in the right leader and bringing in the right kind of thinking, and broad-based partnerships, and working closely with all the different disparate parties that you need to bring together for this a huge effort.
Yeah,
And
and how do you modernize the brand? I mean, that's really the work I've done over my existence is, taking something that exists and modernizing it, whether it's the lottery or the utility or the White House or the two beauty brands that I'm working with today. I mean, has great value. And how do we make certain that it not only connects with the existing consumers or interfaces, but that it also prepares a trajectory for it to be, part of the center of the world in the future.
yes, thank God you're there. That's all I got to say. Sarah, I think we're at that point where we have some pretty fun questions.
I know. All right. So Desiree, mine, and I'm like this one trick pony. Cat or dog person?
That is so hard. I really am a dog person, but my daughter left her cats with me for 3 years.
Aw,
So I then became a cat person. But so I'm a dog and a cat person.
And that's a fair answer. I knew you were a
You
fur
know,
mama. I
it's
knew
just,
it.
what can I tell you? I grew up with a dog. I never knew a
Yeah.
cat ever until these two cats were dropped off for 3 years.
Oh my God, that sounds familiar.
A long time, right?
I've had two dogs dropped off recently. Not 3 years yet, though.
Oh, I know you keep saying, when are you picking them up? When are you picking them up?
I know.
Finally, I'm like, they're getting thrown out if you don't pick them. It was 3 years. It was
Right.
crazy that I had two cats for 3 years. I treated them like dogs, though. I treated them like dogs.
okay. My funny question is, what is a secret talent that you have that nobody else knows about?
Hmm. A secret talent. I know what I wish it would be.
What do you wish it
I
would be?
wish that I was an amazing dancer.
Oh, you love to dance?
I'd love to dance. I wish that I was an amazing I look at dancing videos early in the morning, and I'm like, how are they doing those steps? All kinds of dancing. All kinds of dancing. I mean, I just love it. Old, young. I'm like, they're so good. How do they know how to do this? How are they able to do it? So that's what I would wish for. I think, if I had this, I don't know, talent, but I'm pretty good at reading people very quickly.
That's a critical skill.
That doesn't mean I always follow my own advice. Sometimes you're just attracted to, you're like, I like them. I want to, and then you're like, this was a bad idea. It was a bad idea. So I think one of the things we didn't really talk about is like kind of like, what am I working on now and what's
Yes.
important for me to
We'd
improve
love
on,
to know that.
improve
Tell
on.
us.
And I think, overall it's a little bit more patience, a lot more patience. I feel like time's like of the essence and I want to do so many things and there's so many things to do. And every day I wake up and I'm like, there's even more stuff than I thought there was to do. and I get obsessed. I'm obsessed with all these riots that are happening right now. I just get
I know.
obsessed. And I'm like, there's time. We don't gotta hurry. What are we waiting for? And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to like slow that down and really trying to take in what's actually happening in a softer, more less spinning to the next thing kind of way. Very difficult for me. Very difficult for me because I'm not often right, but probably 80% of the time I'm right when people are talking. I'm like, I know what they're going to say. Just get it out. Let's go. I'm thinking, and that's part of my dyslexia. That's part of how I've trained my mind to
Mhm.
to think, right? Because I'm so afraid I'm going to get behind, so I've got to be like two sentences ahead.
I mean, you're so just bright. You're just bright. You're so smart. I think you had to be to handle everything that you handled and still, be the leader and have all these great ideas. It's
I
hard
really feel
maybe for
like we're
some people
all
to
so
catch up.
smart. It's just a matter of leaning in and figuring out what it is that you want to do with your talent.
Mm,
We're all, most smart and talented. It's just a question of like tapping into that and tapping into it in a way that's good for you. So many times we
yeah,
allow other people
yeah,
to push us along in directions that we really don't want to be in. And it's hard to say no if that person is someone you respect or you really feel, well, they might know more than I do. I'm going to tell you they don't. You know the most about yourself than anyone else. Maybe your mother, maybe. But I think as we get to a certain point, we know the most about ourselves. And sometimes we just don't want to admit it. We need to go on and admit it and
mm,
work with it and pull ourselves together. You get one go round in this life. You need to make it fun. You need to
well,
make it something.
I'm so inspired by you, Desiree, because you've led in the service of others. You've led, serving communities. Like that's what's energized you, and you couldn't ask for anything but.
Well, when you see people like, break down in tears because the chocolate raspberry, which is the color of lipstick, you brought it back, and her father, who's deceased for X number of years, brought her to the counter to get it for her first tube of lipstick. You can't help but be just super duper, just excited about maintaining history, maintaining legacy. History is so important and legacy is so important. And so I am so lucky to be at the helm of these two iconic brands in my own
mm,
community and bringing new joy to future
yes.
generations, I hope, but also existing generations that remember it so well. Like, your first lipstick when your dad takes you to buy it. I mean, she had all of us in tears. We were all in tears.
Wow, that's great. It just goes to, back to the theme where you said you want to be where the action is. You want to be where you're making an impact and your customers, your people, and you're making a difference for these people in their lives. So bravo, kudos to you, and thank you for everything you're doing to lead a lot of things that have impacted all of us. So great
Well,
job.
thank you guys for making the time
Yeah,
and getting
thank
this done.
you.
And good luck on your journey of your
Oh, thank
podcast,
you.
because that's an
Thank you.
important thing to be recording people's voices and having other people that giving them the opportunity to hear
Absolutely.
these stories that you guys are archiving.
Well, thank you. And spread the word. We want everyone to listen in because these are great inspirational stories of really amazing women that are leading in our society. And we just want to, shine the light so others can learn the lessons.
Yeah.
Go to the HBSWA website and you go to hbswa.org/podcast. But it's also on any of your normal channels at Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple. You can catch it all there. And don't forget, check out Desiree's company, blackopalbeauty.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Desiree. You're a star.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Sarah,
guys.
thank you too.
Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye bye now.